Explosive plays will define this matchup.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. So visit FanDuel.com to get started. So Vandy's set to take on Missouri. Vandy comes in as 21-point underdogs, and this team will have its work cut out for them for sure, especially after last week and, everything that's up in the air. But they've had a much more focused week of practice, and, there's some things obviously to fix, but offensively and defensively, honestly, what it's going to come down to is explosive plays is going to define this matchup. All right, so what do I mean by that? Well, Let's go backwards a second, okay? Lack of focus, overconfidence, lackluster energy early plagued this Vandy team in the last game, right? They were overconfident. They weren't focused. They didn't want to be there. And then when they realized that they weren't just going to be able to roll into Georgia State and get a win, they started playing with a little bit of fire, a little bit of focus, and it was too little, too late, unfortunately. But that was number one on the board for things to fix for Clark Lee. And it seems as though, according to Clark Lee in his press conference, that they've had a better week of practice. I mean, Diego Pavia even said that this is why he came to Vandy to play in games like this, to play in SEC games. And so he is, they seem to be a lot more fired up about this game. So it's making me feel a little bit better that maybe we'll see something. I don't know what that something is, but I don't think we're going to see a lack of energy in this game. Now, Missouri's a really good team, so I have to say that even if both teams were fired up, they do have the capability of being really good. So, but I think this is going to be a pretty good game, and I'll tell you why. So, looking at Missouri, Diego Pavia and this offense will obviously have to get back on track with the run game, back on track with, just kind of putting their identity back out there. Because I think they got away from that a little bit last week. But they got to get back on track as far as running the ball, getting the ball to the perimeter, putting guys in conflict, things that made them successful against Virginia Tech, things that obviously made them super successful against Alcorn State, and things that made them successful on the last couple of drives in the Georgia State game. Offensively, but hitting explosive plays is going to help that cause. And they've got to be able to get chunk yardage because it is important and it affects the game in the way of if they can get explosive plays, which is, in my definition, 15 yards or more, they can move the chains, control the clock, and even put points up on the board. But what it's going to come down to is getting explosives in the run game off of the option. They're going to have to, if they're going to open up in the middle, they're going to have to hit the perimeters. They're going to have to stretch them out horizontally to create some run lanes. And so that's obviously task number one for Diego Pavia. And he can do that really well. It didn't feel like he was on top of his game last week, and didn't seem like anybody was on top of their game last week. But again, it was lack of focus mostly, and it just got away from him. But if they're gonna get these big chunk plays, they're also gonna have to hit on a few shot plays, because not only are they gonna have to spread the defense horizontally, they're gonna have to stretch them vertically. It is super, super important for Vandy, and this is probably their weakest point coming into the season, is being able to push the ball down the field. They've had a little bit of marginal success in pushing the ball downfield, but most of the majority of their success offensively has come from driving the ball. 6 yards, 5 yards, 10 yards here, 2 yards, and just driving methodically down the field, not only controlling the clock, but also being able to finish those drives and get points. So, but I think as they get into the meat of SEC play, they're going to have to kind of start hitting some of these shot plays, and it's honestly going to have to start this weekend in Missouri. So here's here's one that I think could be something they could do. Okay, this is kind of a pass option. It's quick game and sprint out. So I think this is a unique play where they can the offensive line can kind of slam down away from the sprint out, and you have a pre-snap leverage read over here to the left with the X. He's going to run a speed out or a slant or whatever you feel good about route wise with that solo receiver. That's what you're gonna do. Speed outs are usually pretty deadly in that regard. So this is assuming the ball's in the middle of the field. If that solo guy's to the boundary, that route probably changes. If that solo guy is somehow to the field, that route probably also can look maybe a little bit different too. So depending on where you are field position wise, will determine that route for the solo. So they're going to look quick game first and throw it out there if it's there. If you like the matchup, go ahead and take it. It's a free 5, 6, 7 yards, and you're off and running. But if it doesn't look quite right, or you feel like you can get a big play, definitely now take the sprint out. So you have a safety valve in the tight end, which is going to be Cole Spence. I don't know what the deal is with Eli Stowers injury wise, if he's going to be up. But I think with that being a question, I think Cole Spence can definitely handle this role. But I think you could see a world where Cole Spence slams, making sure Diego Pavia can get out to the edge and then pops out and runs with him as a safety valve. But for this play, I think to make it work, you have to be able to hold the safeties, okay? Because if you're going to present a true one-on-one with your outside receiver on this deep comeback, I think you've got to be able to hold that safety to the middle of the field and also possibly give yourself a chance on this corner route or this post corner route here to be able to hit that deep down the field as well. So by doing that, by running that deep post while the quarterback is glancing over at the quick side, it gives you the illusion, it gives the defense the illusion, especially the deep safeties, and especially if they're going to play too high, which I don't know that against Vandy you're going to get a ton of too high because they're not overwhelmingly pass-heavy team. But you're going to get something where the post can bang into the safety and get up to the top. So this is something that, and I know I'm getting technical here. I know I'm getting kind of in the weeds here with the shot play, but I think this is pretty interesting of a concept here because it allows Diego Pavia to get out on the perimeter, and it gives you a short option and two deep completion options, and it also gives you a quick outlet if your matchup is good. So being able to hit on plays like that, I think will be able to help Diego Pavia in this offense move the ball down the field. Okay. And you get those bigger chunks, you get some momentum, and you get what that does psychologically for Missouri is it gets them on their heels a little bit. When they get on their heels, like you saw what happened against Boston College, like Missouri got on their heels a little bit defensively. They got reeling a little bit, and they were able, Boston College is able to hit some big plays on them, and they were able to put a few points across the board. Unfortunately for Boston College, Castellanos, he turned the ball over a couple of times, and that kind of spelled trouble, and that kind of gave Missouri that edge. So if Vandy can do something similar in hitting shot plays while also taking care of the ball and limiting, actually making their turnovers non-existent, having a 0 in that column, I think they're going to have a really good shot in this game because they can hit those plays and they can be able to push the ball down the field. And the last one right here, I'll go quickly on this. Here's something that they can do to kind of attack the middle of the field, and you get kind of like a high-low on a safety. Now, this is something that I think could work on a defense that Vandy will likely see a lot of, which I could see them getting a lot of cover one with tight coverage here, forcing those receivers to beat you one-on-one. But when you look at the way these routes hit, you'll have these spot routes which are kind of dead, and it'll kind of hold the corner, make the corner make a decision on if they want to roll with the slot post or what they want to do with that. They'll probably trade that up to the safety. Somebody will have to run with the slot post, and then somebody will have to drive on that deep to intermediate inside dig there. So you have some concepts there, and that high free safety that's going to play up above in the middle of the field about 10 to 12 yards will have a decision to make as a post breaks towards him and threatens his backside, and a dig threatens him and will hopefully draw his eyes and cause and force him to drive down on that, leaving that post wide open. And if Diego Pavia can hit that could be a big play, maybe even 6. So that's something that you could see Vandy employing to be able to move the ball downfield. But explosives are going to be what makes this thing go for Vandy. They have to get these chunk yardage plays to get Missouri back on their heels. And once Missouri gets back on their heels a little bit, then Vandy can up the tempo, they can put pressure on this defense, and they can really start to kind of make a difference in this game, whether it's field position, time of possession, and or points. And all those things are important if they want to keep this thing close and give themselves a shot to legitimately win this game, which nobody's given them a shot, and rightfully so, honestly. But nobody's giving Vandy a shot. So there's their chance. Explosive plays. So they have to make explosive plays, but also they have to limit them too. They have to hit on the shot plays, get the chunk yardage, while also limiting the amount of time the defense is out there will also help the defense limit the explosive plays from Missouri's end, because that offense can certainly churn those out. And we'll talk about that next. All right, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. Yeah, it's America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you now through September 22nd. That's Monday. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. Let me clear my throat. Hey, Vandy fans, have you heard about Roy? Yeah, not talking about Roy McAvoy, 10 Cup. I'm talking about Return on You. It's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. As you all know, NIL has changed the game for athletes. Roy changes the NIL game for fans. So why is Roy different? Well, you can directly support players, and it allows you, the fans, to directly back your favorite college athletes. With Roy, fans can play a key role in shaping the future of your favorite teams, while athletes maximize their name, image, and likeness potential. All right. Also, there's no risk contributions. Fans' contributions are securely held and are only distributed if the athlete makes a decision that aligns with the fan's support. If not, the money is returned to the fan. That's awesome. So, what you need to do, here's what you need to do. You need to download Roy for iOS or Android and enter the referral code LOCKEDON, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. So visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. So get the Roy app for iOS. Start making an early impact on your favorite team. Again, use the referral code LOCKEDON for an opportunity to win $5,000 cash. All you have to do is visit joinroy.com for more details. No purchase necessary. Again, void where prohibited. So get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with Roy. 10 Cup. All right, welcome back. It's the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. Isn't college football fun? This is going to be a year of chaos. The new 12-team playoff. Ole Miss is in the mix. Man, I never thought I'd see that day. Georgia, obviously, they took a step backwards against Kentucky. Are they still legit? Texas has a shot to win the SEC. What other teams from other conferences are going to join in there? Does Miami have a shot? I mean, there's a lot of questions to be answered, and this season is still very, very young. So there's still a lot of football to play, and this 12-team playoff is going to be interesting in how it shakes out. But what you need to do in the meantime is subscribe to Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin and get all of your information that you need. It's a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, speaking of everydayers, thank you to my everydayers. And I even saw in the comments I have a double dayer. I'm not sure. I think that means what I think it means, meaning you listen to this show twice a day, which I certainly appreciate that. You can certainly listen to it. You can be 100 a dayer, You could be a quadruple dayer. Meaning you just keep listening, which is great. Tell a friend, be a friend, help us out, support this thing, man. Whether you agree, disagree with the things that I'm saying, whether you think I'm a lunatic or a genius or anything in between, man, this show is just so much fun. Just join in. I'm enjoying reading the comments, even the quirky ones. So this is a lot of fun. But we're talking about explosive plays, okay? Because honestly, that's going to define this matchup, okay? That's our objective today. We've got to define this matchup. And that's what's, as I was racking my brain, trying to kind of figure out how and predict how this thing was going to go, because Vandy is 21-point underdogs. I keep coming back to, Missouri's very explosive. They've got some guys that can really push the ball. Vandy can get big chunk yardage. They're going to control the clock. They're explosive in a different way. Both defenses are hit or miss with it. They're both aggressive style defenses that take chances. And when you take chances, you do get burned occasionally. But it's up to you have to have a team constructed to be able to recover from those burns, right? And Vandy couldn't recover from those burns, and then they ended up getting burnt at the end of the game. Whereas Boston College was able to burn Missouri on a few occasions. Missouri's able to recover and win that game. That's the difference in where these two teams are. But defensively, for Vandy, it's going to be a tall order to limit these wide receivers. I think that's goal number one, because this offense, let's be honest, if you say it runs through anyone else besides Luther Burden, you're lying. It runs through Luther Burden. But what this team is, what Vandy, some of the things that Vandy has going for it is, there's a chance that this team could come in overconfident based on what happened this weekend. I don't think Eli Drinkwitz is going to let that happen, but it could. It could happen. But Luther Burden feels really good about himself. And certainly rightfully so, he's one of the best receivers in the entire country, if not the best receiver in the entire country. They have a really nice duo. Theo Weiss, I think, would be a number one in most programs. Just happens to be on the same roster as Luther Burden. Both of those guys are extremely dangerous. Brady Cook is the perfect quarterback to get them the ball. To be able to move around just enough to free him up to be able to make these throws. And then they have a run game that honestly is hit or miss. And it was hit a lot last week against Boston College as they just explosive plays all over. They had chunk yardage on their outside zone stretch play with Nate Noel. They looked really good running that play. And it's something that, if you watch the 49ers, this is an NFL example. Obviously, these 49ers in Missouri aren't even the same realm. But if I'm giving you an NFL example, it's the 49ers. It's the Kyle Shanahan stretch zone, attack the edge, and make your read. And the defensive line's always wrong. And that sets up heavy flow. And then you can boot off of that. You can throw shots off of that. You can double move off of that stuff. But it really kind of opens up some things, because with the thing I love most about outside zone is it forces defenders to run. You have to run. You have to scream. You have to get there. Okay. You have to get there to stop it. It's not an inside run where your box players can stop it and you can still lock down things on the outside. Stretch zone, outside zone, mid zone are plays that force defenders to be on the move. And when you put defenders on the move, different guys are affected. So now corners come into play, safeties come into play, outside linebackers come into play, where normally they might be droppers, or the DBs are doing their thing in coverages, however they're aligned and however they're choosing to play. But you're sitting there, and now those guys are in conflict. And when you play action, it's really dangerous. And I think Missouri does a good job of capitalizing off that. And Luther Burden is just such a talented receiver that it's just he's just open all the freaking time. And you're wondering, it's like, this guy's the best receiver in the country. How are we not covering him? Well, you're not understanding, like, these guys are in conflict. Like, you can't bracket it because you got Theo Weiss. You can't overcover it because now you're susceptible to a weak side run with Nate Noel. You've got some one-on-one things that even their third receiver, and even though his name is not a prominent name, there's going to be some guy that you've never heard of that's going to get some action because Luther Burden and Theo Weiss are, the defense is taking care of them. So Vandy's going to have to get all this done without CJ Taylor in the first half because of and Clark Lee, you couldn't say it. I know you wanted to, so I'll say it. That call sucked, by the way. Those refs were awful. I'll say it for you. You're not going to have CJ Taylor in the first half. You're likely not going to have Corday Sidnor is practicing, but even if he plays, he'll be limited. Zaylen Wood's not expected to play, so you're going to be doing it down a few key players. So you really have to get creative in how you scheme it up. I think this is going to be, if they can pull this off, this will be one of the best coaching jobs that Clark Lee has ever had because of the injuries he's dealing with and the adversity he's dealing with CJ Taylor. So I'm going to dive more into this here in just a second, but we'll talk about it next. Game time. What time is it? Game time. Gametime has this new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I wanted to go to a Titans game. I ended up not going, but there were some phenomenal deals there, and most of it was because Gametime curated and said, hey, these are the seats that you want. Here's the deals that you want. So have fun with that, right? So it just makes it easy, man. It just makes it easy to find the right deals. If you toggle in all in pricing, which I did, it shows you the total up front with no surprise fees. Seat views, which is my favorite feature. You get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. You can't beat that, man. And you also can't beat the lowest ticket price guarantee because Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference, right? If you find a lower price. And the Gametime ticketing coverage is the best in the ticketing industry because your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime by using Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, I'm going to tell it to you again. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege. You spell it LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. Do it. All right, we are wrapping up the show here, Locked On Vandy Podcast and the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for every day. Thank you to your everydayers. Locked On SEC is a podcast you want to join next. Chris Gordy does a phenomenal job. He gets everybody together once a week, so that's outstanding. But talking a little bit of defense here, right? Vandy's going to be doing this short a few players. They're going to have to limit these talented wide receivers, okay? And here's how you're going to do it, all right? Because Theo Weiss is a dog. Luther Burden, best in the country. Brady Cook, one of the top quarterbacks in the SEC, if not arguably the region and arguably the country, okay? He's among the leaders. He's among the quarterbacks that I would roll with I would roll with Pavia. I would roll with Brady Cook. I would roll with Carson Beck. I would roll definitely with Jackson Dart. Not in any particular order, but these are guys that I would roll with, right? I would not roll with DJ Ongulale. Sorry. He's not very good. But one of the things you have to do with an explosive offense like this is the first thing you have to do is you have to take away something, okay? You have to make this team one-dimensional in some way, whether that's they're not going to be able to run the ball a lick, or that you're going to make it difficult for them to throw the ball, but they can run a little bit. So you have to figure out the first thing you're going to take away. All right, you got to do that early. Okay, you've got to get them on their heels early. You've got to figure out, all right, we're going to make it a point to take away their run game. We're not going to let them run stretch. Okay, that's probably the first thing you need to do, because that's something that honestly is easier than covering Luther Burden, right? So you have to stop them, force them into. You got to win first down. You got to win. You got to win first down. Don't lose second down too badly. Try to get them as best you can into third and long or third and medium. Try to stay out of third and short, and really just force them into obvious passing situations to where you can actually pin your ears back and bring some funk, right? Because I love Brady Cook. I think he's a great quarterback, but he's not immune to seeing funky defenses and getting confused. He's still a college quarterback, and there are still defenses and there are still things you can do to disguise that can confuse him. Just don't do it to a point where you confuse yourself, because I think there's been a couple times this year where you've thrown some funk out there and you actually outcoached yourself and you confused yourself a little bit. Don't do that, obviously, but by making them one-dimensional, it gets them in a situation to where now they are reeling, trying to figure out, okay, we got to get this run game going, because we can't draw anybody up if they're not going to take us seriously running the ball, right? So for Missouri, if you could just get them that little seed of doubt, it goes a long way, right? And even though they're the home team and they have the support of the fans, I mean, we've seen this thing. It can turn on a dime. These negative thoughts, these thoughts of doubt, they can turn ugly in a heartbeat, right? I mean, Virginia Tech, first game of the year. I mean, from the first freaking snap, they planted that seed of doubt in Virginia Tech's head. And it took them a long time to recover, but they never fully recovered because there was always that doubt there. And that's why in the end, Kyron Jones couldn't make enough plays. Alcorn State were just overmatched and steamrolled, so I'm not counting that game. All right. And then Georgia State did that to us. There was, from the things going wrong. Diego Pavia fumbles in the first series. You have the touchback. You give up big chunk yardage. You allow Christian Veilleux to pick you apart a little bit. You don't get enough pressure on him early on. Those seeds of doubt are planted. And then even though you roar back, take the lead, again, those seeds of doubt are in there and they're growing. And that last series happened. You end up walking out of Atlanta with a loss, okay? And I don't want to harp on that too much, but I use that as an example because you can actually, in turn, do that to Missouri. You make them one-dimensional, seed of doubt. We can't run the ball. What are we going to do? Pressure the quarterback. Get hits on him. Get him off his rhythm. Get him off his spot. Make him clutch, right? Make him double clutch. Create some errant throws. Get him going backwards. Get him bailing on the pocket. Get him, if you can, and you really want, if you can get him seeing phantom pressure, because there's not a quarterback in this sport, in the history of the sport, that's immune to getting rattled. Everyone at some point has gotten rattled. Make it Brady Cook's turn to be rattled. Okay. Every quarterback has been rattled, and you can throw any name you want to. You can pick out a game and they're rattled. It's how they respond late in the games will determine, the greatness of the quarterback. Like Patrick Mahomes got rattled in the Super Bowl, came back, and won the game. All right. Tom Brady's been rattled a million times. He recovers, right? but don't let Brady Cook do that. Make Brady Cook the next guy to get rattled. So you have to limit their explosive plays. While doing that, you're going to end up creating a few for yourself. So defense, special teams can contribute as well by getting some big returns, getting a couple first downs on some returns, or like 2 first downs worth of yardage on returns. You can be perfect on all your field goals and PATs, punt, flipping the field, adding more first down yardage to your punts, whereas you force them into having to make 2 extra first downs or 3 extra first downs by your by the quality of your punt. You can even get into the action by blocking a punt, returning one for a touchdown. Those can be some things, some momentum changers, some game changers that Vandy can use to their advantage. Now, on the flip side, if they give up some of those things, and the opposite happens, well, then Missouri's going to steamroll you because they have that capability. So you can't let them get anything positive momentum-wise, or you have to limit that. You can't let that snowball on you, because Missouri can make that happen if they want to. They can really put it on you if they want to, or if they're capable of that. Don't let them get to that point. So, but that's all we got today. Trying to get John Miller on. Hopefully our schedules can vibe very, very soon for a crossover. Vandy is plus 21 as of right now. I'm taking the points regardless of whether they win. I still think they cover even if they don't win. I still think they cover. I still think that's a lot of points, and Vandy's much more focused. So take Vandy plus 21. I'm probably going to stay away from that over-under, maybe even take the under. If I'm going to take a Vandy cover, I'm going to take the under as well, because I think it'll be an ugly, slower game if Vandy's able to cover. If it turns into a track meet, I think Missouri's just got too much firepower. I think a Missouri cover equals an over. I think a Vandy cover equals an under, as far as I see it. So, but that's going to do it for us here. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Behave yourselves. And of course, anchor down.